we got down to it was about 11 yen, what's that? 11 cents, 12 cents in the bank book, the corporate bank book. And
No
then
way.
the next day we had over $500,000.
As you can see, very exciting episode this week with Robin Doenicke, founder of Zen Show. Robin does an amazing job of making meditation and mindfulness very practical for business. So it's not every day that you get to see someone who is simultaneously a very successful recruiter, a Vedic meditation teacher, an ICF coach, as well as one of Japan's most innovative and influential entrepreneurs. This is something that I want to bring to the recruitment world in Tokyo and just show that we can be mindful, we can have people's best interest at heart, and also be billing and making a lot of money. So I hope you enjoy this episode and you get to learn a little bit more about who Robin is and also what makes Zen Show so unique. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the podcast, Robin.
Good morning.
Thanks for
Thanks for
joining
having
me.
me. Yeah, looking forward to this conversation for a while.
Nice. Yeah, we've never spoken before, so it's our kind of first introduction, and it's public for everyone to see. But I've heard a lot about you. I've seen your profile as well on LinkedIn, and very curious to hear who you are as a person and also as a leader in this recruitment community. So, starting off, I'm curious what originally brought you into the recruitment world in general.
Yeah, look, I think like many people, it wasn't on the cards. Early on in my career, it kind of fell into it. I moved to Japan in 1996, and like so many people, my intention was to stay there for about 6 months to a year. I was
Hmm.
working for a large ad agency in Sydney before that. And I went there because I studied martial arts, and that's been a big part of my life, since I was a child. And I wanted to train with the top teachers, the top masters in Japan. So the idea was come and live in Japan, 6 to 12 months, do some training, go back to my ad agency job. Because I knew I was just here for training, I thought, well, I'll just teach English like everyone else. I was just teaching
Hmm.
English at conversation schools and so on. So I did that, and then quickly 1 year became 2 years, became 3 years, and I thought, I'll leave. I want to stay here long term, but I don't want to keep teaching English. And I think I saw an ad in the Japan Times, maybe an ad in the paper at a large recruitment company called East West Consulting. And
Hmm.
anyway, so I started working there in 2000. Originally was put on a tech team, placed a bunch of tech people, had no real clue what those people were doing. It's not really my area, but I somehow managed to fall into that space. And then started to transition over to the legal sector. And there wasn't really a legal practice happening in Tokyo at that time. There weren't many Japanese lawyers working at foreign corporations, etc. But I figured that look, I didn't really understand the tech thing, so the legal area was a lot more interesting for me. So I built up the legal practice area there and developed that. And in 2003, left to start my current firm, Zensho Agency.
Wow. So you have a similar story to many of us. Interested in Japan, come over as an English teacher, and then into recruitment. And East West is one of the famous original players, I think, as well. What was your intention, I guess, or the reason that you wanted to start a Zen Show in the first place in 2000?
Yeah, 2003. Look, East West was great. It has its reputation, of course. But I can never deny, and I always have to give, I think, due to the fact they gave me a start, and as they do
Mm.
so many others.
Hmm.
And it was fun. I had a great time there. It was a great place to, I guess, to launch my career in recruitment. But like so many people, I just had this urge. I wanted to create something. I wanted to do things a bit differently.
Mm.
Obviously, I wanted to earn more money as well. Around that time, we were starting to see things coming in. I mean, LinkedIn, I think, hadn't come in yet, but we were starting to see this kind of revolution in the tech space. And just looking at the compensation plan, I think I was getting 30% commission on the deals I made, which is fairly standard. But there was a part of me that was thinking, well, look, I'm building my own practice here. I'm bringing in all the clients and the candidates. I'm only taking home 30%. And it just didn't seem to add up. It didn't make sense. But I think more, it wasn't just the money. It was really, I wanted to create something. I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to do it what I felt was a better way, and scratch that entrepreneurial itch. And so,
Mm.
together with another colleague, an ex colleague of East West, we co founded Zensho.
Beautiful. Yeah, as a kind of recent entrepreneur, I can definitely understand and relate to that desire to kind of create something yourself, or at least just have that business that you're building and you know that you're reaping the rewards from.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
curious though, you said doing it your way and bringing that intention into Zen Show. What was the difference that you created or that you wanted to create?
Well, initially, and we could talk a little bit about how we're different now, but initially back then in 2003, being part of a large team, I was subject to all the KPIs and you had to bring in this many people, etc. And as a legal recruiter, it's not a volume driven practice, particularly with Japanese lawyers, Japanese bengoshi. And so I really wanted to focus on the relationship. That was very much relationship driven, not volume driven. And so I was copying a bit of heat from management about the number of people I was bringing in. Yet I was top of the board, leaderboard, and
Hmm.
that wasn't enough. I just had to be making the numbers, and so that didn't really make sense to me. So I felt I was a bit liberated when I left to start my own thing. I was able to then not to focus on KPIs, but to focus on what does my client need, what do my candidates want, how to make that happen in the best possible way.
Excellent. So it was really a focus on what is the achievement, like what is the deliverable, not just the process that's getting there, and that may work in some industries and may not, but what is actually your performance looking like?
Yeah, look, my clients didn't care if I sent them 50 resumes or one resume. They want to see as few people as possible, but they want to see the right people, right? If I can send one resume and make a placement, that's great for everyone involved. And
Mm,
that was definitely, I wouldn't say I was able to just send one resume all the time, but it
mm,
was definitely more about, how can I save my clients' time? How can I save my own time? How can we make
mm-hmm.
sure that the people we're sending over are actually going to be able to do what the person needs them to do, what the client needs them to do?
It sounds ideal. It sounds
It does.
ideal. So, but you said since 2003, I mean, we're almost 20 years now
Yeah, yeah. Over.
since then. So, or sorry, more than 20 years since then. And what I guess has changed in those 20 years, 21 years?
Gone a lot. Well, I mean, look, we can answer that from various perspectives. Obviously, the market is very different, and there were a lot of changes and developments and good and bad times economically over those years. And, we've, I think, survived and in many cases thrived throughout that time because of our ability to adapt. I don't know how much you know about our history, but we from 2003 to 2016,
Mm,
all we did was legal. We focused on the legal market. We won all the awards for best legal recruiter, all that type of thing. And we were very focused on such a small niche area, which, as you know, in Japan it's very small, right? So we had
mm,
between 2003 2016, those 12 13 years, we had anywhere between 3 and 4 legal specialist recruiters. That's all. It was around that time that I started to get a real sense that the market was changing, the world was changing. I think the way people were approaching work and their relationships with their employers was changing. And, we go back to the Industrial Revolution. We have this: all the power, all the talent is focused in the factory, in the office, and it was
mm,
always talent going out in search of looking to be centralized in these places. However, what we saw happening was this gradual shift where it was now this decentralization, if you will, this kind of the individual mattered again. And we saw the advent of Uber and Airbnb and these types of
mm.
things, where we saw this kind of decentralization, as I mentioned. And for some reason, that really stuck with me. I thought, there seems to be this new wave, this new trend emerging. And yet, recruitment as a business hadn't really changed, I think, in 50 years. And, even to this day, I would say most recruiters are, employee recruiters take home on average, I would say 30% of what if a recruiter generates $300,000 in revenue, they'll probably see around $100,000 in their bank account. And that's going to be made up of all these
Mm.
different formulas and salary plus bonus or this plus that, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's usually around 25, I think, to 30%, sometimes a bit more depending on at the higher levels. And I got a lot of inspiration actually from the real estate market. I don't know how this came into my mind, but the real estate brokerage industry in New York, I saw a lot of the top brokerages were attracting the best real estate agents, all of whom are typically independent contractors, independent business owners. And the agents were keeping the lion's share of the revenue that they generated. And they were commission only. They were, because they weren't employees, they were commission only, running their own businesses through the brokerage.
Mm.
And in return, the brokerage would take care of everything else: the contracts, the invoicing, the culture, the community, the camaraderie, the leverage, the brand, the support, the coach, all of that type of thing. And so the agent just had to worry about the buyer and the seller of the property and developing those relationships. And I thought, could this work in recruitment? Could this work in Japan? Everyone told me, not a chance. Don't mess with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I thought, well, I thought it was broken, or at least it was breaking. And I wanted to try something new. And so I spent the next 6 months like a madman in my room, like kind of working on new compensation plans and new ideas and throwing them away. And finally, I had something that I felt was ready to share. And I recall going to I think it was 2 or 3 employee legal recruiters at the time. I said, guys, we're going to do something different. We're going to expand into other areas beyond legal, so tech, healthcare, financial services, etc. And this is going to be the new model. This is going to be the new commission plan, the new way we engage recruiters. If you guys want to be on the old plan, I'll grandfather you in, no problem. No, don't want to force you to the new plan. And they were all like, screw that, we want to be on the new plan as well. So we went from, I don't know, 2 or 3 legal employee recruiters in early 2016 to our current 25 plus independent business owners, all operating under the Zensho umbrella, the Zensho brand. And we've made so many tweaks along the way. I mean, even during COVID, we didn't really have to change a lot. We were already set up to deal with that in many ways, even though we had a lot of pressures like everyone else in terms of what was happening business wise. But in terms of our infrastructure, and it really was an opportunity to see where we needed to tighten things up, where we needed to adapt. I think this brings us to this point today where I think we've got a very good system in place that really is there to support each of our individual partners. And we opened up in London a few years ago. We have 5 or 6 people there. And we're soon to launch in a couple of other markets, which hopefully I'll be announcing very soon as well.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And to be clear, it hasn't been this journey of success like this. There's been lots of ups and downs. I think, one of the, I remember when I started Zen Show with my colleague Steve, we started in 2000, it was October 2003. I think within 5 weeks, we were almost bankrupt, right? And it was one deal that came in. There was a retainer. It was like 2 million yen or something that saved us. And then again, right around the Lehman shock, the global financial crisis, I remember, this is still when we're, in the old model, the 2 or 3 legal recruiters. I saw the money in the bank going down. No one was hiring. It was just really, and I let everyone know in the company. I said, guys, this is the situation. I understand if you need to go and find other work, do what you need to do. I'm going to try and, make this work somehow. So we lost the office. We didn't have money for the office. And obviously everyone had to reduce their monthly monthly salary. And I have a copy of it somewhere. I need to find it. We got down to it was about 11 yen. What's that? 11 cents, 12 cents in the bank book, the corporate bank book.
No way.
And then the next day we had over $500,000 because a deal I'd been working on for 8 months came through. It was a big partner deal, 10 lawyers moving between 2 law firms. It was literally down to 11 yen and then, 62 million yen or something like that.
Wow.
So we really got down to the edge. And I'll always remember, I'll always be grateful for the team that stuck there. They stuck with me. They stuck through it. We stuck together. We worked out of coffee shops. We kept hustling. We knew the only way out of this was to bill our way out, was to deal our way out. And to sit there and waddle in our, concern, anxiety, and fear. And don't get me wrong, there was many moments and sleepless nights where I was worried for my people and their families. They were dependent on the company to put food on their table, right? So, but we got through it. And then, it hasn't been like, we haven't experienced anything like that since, thankfully. But there's ups and downs as the market goes up and down. A tough couple of years, recruiting in the market, but things seem to be picking up. And it's great just to see the resilience of the people that we have, and the creativity and the camaraderie and the community, how we trying to band together to help each other get things across the line.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
A very long-winded answer to your very short question.
No, no, that's exactly what we want. We want to hear all those ups and downs and how you
Yeah,
got through them. And yeah, I do want to explore, I'd like take a quick pivot before we get back into what does that structure look like, what is the commission scheme, etc. But first, yeah, just you were saying there were sleepless nights. You were saying that it was a tough time. It was kind of a struggle. I'm curious, what at what point I can see like this Zen imagery in the background. You have Zen Show in the name as well, and you are a very well practiced meditator as well. I just want to know, does this connect in some way? Did you meet Zen or meditation at this time, or was it later on? Or could you give us a little bit about that story and how it connects?
yeah, very, very, very much so, and it's all connected. That sounds like such a Zen thing to say, but yeah, but I did come across Zen earlier on in my, when I arrived in Japan through the martial arts, of course, that I was studying, and continue to study to this day. But Zen, I did a lot of formal Zen practice, probably actually more seriously around the time that we just talked about, where things were quite tough.
Mm,
And I found a lot of solace in my practice. I found it was very beneficial as a way to get out of my mind, and the whole be here and now, to really get here, because any solution to this crisis I was in, and the firm was in, had to happen here and now, and it wasn't going to happen in some narrative or some story in my mind. And yet my mind was too easily willing to go there and go down that rabbit hole, and then the anxiety and the stress and the tension, the fatigue that would come from that. I found that my Zen practice, and my, you see in the image, the other picture on the wall there, my meditation practice, Vedic, from the Indian tradition, the Vedic meditation practice, which I'm also a trained teacher in. I found those to be incredibly beneficial, just in helping me. I use the term mental hygiene, like we brush our teeth, and that's dental hygiene, but it's kind of my meditation practice, my mindfulness practice is very much my mental hygiene. It helps me kind of clear the static and that stress, that tension, that fatigue that tends to build in all our lives on a daily basis.
mm,
So a lot of relief, I think, through that, and it just helped me to be very, not to hide away from from the issue, but really to lean into it. To embrace it, to go towards
mm,
it, not to pretend it wasn't happening, not to wish it
mm.
wasn't happening, not to hope it ends, but to actually deal with the reality of the situation. And as I often say, when I argue with reality, I lose every single time. God knows I've tried. I argue with her all the time, and I'm yet to win. So it was helping me accept the situation, and with that acceptance came, I guess, a sense of clarity. And with
Mm.
that clarity, I was able to act more, to respond more appropriately, more authentically. And that just, I think, helped me get through that situation, helped us make decisions as a firm that got us back to, back on the right path.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer as well, and there's a lot of things I want to kind of unpack here. But first of all, I think there's kind of a maybe preconceived notion that someone who's a Zen master or a meditating teacher is someone who's out in a dojo somewhere and they're not really interacting with the world. They're just sitting there in silence, and it might be easy to say. I mean, it's not an easy job to be a monk at all, but in some ways, being disconnected from the world, maybe it makes it a little bit easier to have that mental hygiene, as you were saying. But it's interesting that you've blended the two. You're very much in the world and you're using it not for inaction, but for being able to kind of take action. I don't know if I'm hearing you correctly here, but.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think Zen, or any kind of non-dual spiritual kind of practice or tradition, and again, I'm not religious at all, but I guess you would say, quote unquote, spiritual, in the sense that I practice these things: meditation, mindfulness, Zen, non-duality, like Advaita Vedanta. These are, these kind of non-dual traditions that come largely out of India. Um, but I think the real practice is in the thick of things. It's, yeah, we can
Mm,
all go off to a cave and live there, but actually, you go off to a cave and you'll bring your stories with you, and you'll bring your same monkey mind with you, whether you're sitting in a cave or not. And I think one of my I have two kids. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old boy, and particularly when they were young, I mean, they were great Zen teachers in a sense, because they very quickly point out where you still have work to do. The frustration, the impatience that would still arise and still arises. I'm human, of course, right? Um, if you're trying to escape or avoid those situations, you're not really practicing. And to think to go
Mm,
off into a cave in the mountain to get away from those distractions is not Zen. Zen is here and now. And all the power to people who do go off on retreats and stay long term in a cave. That's great for them. But that's not how I'm built. I'm here to be here. And
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
think it's not, Zen is not something you use, obviously. It's not a tool. Then it becomes something external to you that you're using. It's inauthentic if you do it that way. It just becomes part of your being. And it's
mm,
just about, to put it simply, it's just about trying to be as present as possible. And what do I mean by being present? When we're here and now, like talking with you, there's no thought about anything else. Nothing else in some level exists right now. It's all waiting for me after this call. I'm sure I can pick up all the mental baggage again and the things I have to do or the things I didn't do. But to the degree possible where I can quieten that mind and just be here now, I feel it's a wonderful tool. And it really relates back to our work as recruiters, because
mm,
any industry, of course, but particularly in recruitment, where we are very much in the business of relationship building. The kind of sales techniques that we saw in the 80s and 90s, they don't work anymore. People see through that stuff. It's not authentic. It's people are repulsed by any kind of sales technique or trying to manipulate or anything like that.
mm,
So I think the more present you are, the less agenda that you have, and people somehow sense that. I think people are drawn to authenticity. We like people who are willing to be vulnerable, who are willing to, step outside this kind of story, that narrative, that conditioning, and just be themselves. And you either like them or you don't for that. But I think
mm.
when you can connect better when
Yeah.
the more authentic that we are.
Yeah, definitely. And it reminds me, there's a coaching technique that we use. There's the 3 levels of listening. And the first level of listening is basically you're listening to your own thoughts. Someone else is speaking, but you're thinking, what am I going to say next? Or you're thinking, oh, I have to close this person, so I need to figure out where's my in to close this person? Or I'm hungry. You're thinking about your needs. And then the second level would be, yeah, you're actually listening to that person and you're hearing what they're saying. And your third level would be you're also seeing the things that they're not saying because you're so present that you are detecting, okay, they're saying this, but actually their face is changing a little bit, and maybe they're not feeling exactly, what they're saying, or there's something else on their mind. So it kind of reminds me of this. You have to be present as a coach and as a meditator, and as a recruiter to do a good job for your client, for that person that you're working with.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
100% my opinion as well. I mean, I'm a coach as well. I'm a certified coach, and
Oh,
I think
nice.
largely
Okay.
my role as CEO of a business with 25 plus very active recruiters running their own businesses. I find my job is, obviously I'm running the machine together with my leadership team, but my role is very much a mentor and a coach. And
Mm,
I also coach people outside of the Zen Show and as a separate thing. And back to your point about, I think the biggest thing we can do as a coach is really to hold that space. And it's such a cliche term these days, but
mm,
it's that what's happening in the silence, what's happening, what's not being said, right? What's happening between the
mm-hmm,
lines, because that's where it comes alive. It's like music, right? It's the space between the notes that
mm-hmm.
creates the music, right? That's where it comes
Yeah.
alive. And I had this one, not to digress too much, but I had this one executive. She was actually a lawyer in Japan, and the law firm knew I was a coach and engaged me to be a coach to this partner, and nothing to do with recruitment. And I went to her office and would sit there in the office, and she had a window over here. And every time we'd talk, I'd talk about something about, she wanted to talk about delegation and some other things and, typical kind of executive coaching stuff. But
Mm,
I'm more interested in the root cause of things and
mm-hmm.
less about the symptoms. Because when you address that, you address everything else. Every time I mentioned a certain word, something to do about her own idea of self and who she was, she just very subtly, I didn't pick it up the first couple of times, but she kept looking out the window. And I brought it up to her. I said, I've noticed when I mention this, you look out the window. I'm just curious. And she wasn't aware. Then she goes, there's a tree out there. It reminds me of when I was a little kid at home, blah, 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 blah. And there was a tree there. And to cut a long story short, the issue she was facing as in her professional career as this very highly successful and productive woman in her 40s all stemmed from something that was going on that happened when she was a child. And neither of us, she didn't know that. She wasn't conscious of that until this moment throughout the conversation. And I wasn't trying to guide her there or something with some skillful questioning, but it was just in that space. And when we addressed that, everything else seemed to kind of naturally fall into place. And it was just a beautiful example of, I think, of what you were just mentioning about how we listen.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm a new coach. I'm just starting out, so I have a lot to learn from you. And hearing these stories makes me feel like it's the right path to go down as well.
And just being who you are and a listener like you are, it's just great. That's what coaching is. It's not about as you touched on. Oh, I've got to come up with. He's about to finish talking. I've got to come up with a smart question.
Yeah.
I've got to come up with the next coaching question that makes him realize how good a coach I am. No, it's just being you and allowing that what's going to come out, what needs to come out. It's trusting that everything you need, you and the client, is available in that space here and now. That's the biggest takeaway I've had from all the things I've learned about coaching and my own experience and so on.
Thank you for sharing that. And one more thing before we get back into recruitment,
right.
I'm just curious about.
That's right.
Yeah. One more question I have is just practically speaking, like you said, you're a meditation teacher in the Veda tradition, you said?
A Vedic tradition, yeah.
A Vedic.
Vedic, yeah.
A Vedic.
Vedas, the old Indian tradition, yeah.
And also a Zen practitioner. What does that mean on a day-to-day, like practical basis? Do you just be more mindful during the day? Is there a technique that you use? Do you meditate for 2 hours, once in the morning, once at night, or what does that look like practically?
And again, there's lots of debate and discussion about the difference between meditation and mindfulness and all of that type of thing. I think Zen is more of a mindful practice for me in the sense that everything you're doing, Zen isn't something you do for an hour or two. It's something you're doing all the time, right? Even when you're in the thick of things, even if you're in an argument with someone. Zen should be, it's the way you approach this sense of being and who you are and this idea of being present. And the meditation, the Vedic tradition of the Vedic meditation that I teach is a very structured practice of 20 minutes twice a day, basically. So I do it bookends of the day. And that is a mantra-driven meditation technique where you have to sit in a weird lotus posture or anything, sitting in a chair with the eyes closed. And there's a certain practice in how we do that. So the meditation, kind of formal meditation, twice a day. And the Zen, I'll often sit in Zazen when I go to there's a Zen temple. I'm in Sydney, Australia at the moment. There's a Zen temple just down the road. So I'll go to like a formal Zazen sitting there. And that's usually for about an hour. But very much, I think Zen is more the kind of the umbrella that kind of encapsulates everything I'm doing. And the Vedic meditation is more of a specific practice that I do, twice a day.
Okay, excellent. It's good to hear the other side.
Hopefully that shows up and makes... Look, I think someone told me this once, there's 1,440 minutes, right, a day, apparently. 1,440 minutes. And so my meditation teacher told me, he said, look, Robin, just shave off those last 40 for yourself and give the other 1,400 to the world. And so those 40 minutes, 20 and 20, is really what I give to myself twice a day. And the other 1,400 is pretty much, whatever needs to be done and my family and all the different roles that I play.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's hard sometimes to make the time for it, but when you think of it like this, then it makes sense. Part of what I want to do as a coach is to bring this kind of mindfulness into a recruiter's daily life. There's a lot of people who are suffering in one way or another. I mean, in life in general, but especially maybe in recruitment in Tokyo, and kind of bringing, more mindfulness that you can change your situation if you want to, or accept your situation, things like that come into play. I think doing a meditation practice like this would help quite a bit. But I'm curious, when you are hiring for Zensho or that whole process, do you look for those type of people, or who generally is the ones that are reaching out to you and end up joining and thriving at Zensho?
Yeah, great question. And I would say there isn't one model or one kind of character that we, typically look for, or that thrives. And of course, we look for people that are going to embrace our values. We spent quite a lot of time, actually, a few years ago, trying to discover and articulate what our values were. We had a whole bunch of nice sounding words before: integrity, and look, if you don't have those things, you shouldn't be in business in the first place. So what was it? What were our values? What was it that was going to be uniquely ours when seen together holistically? And we came up with three core values. And then, so of course, we look for, and I can go into them if you like, but
Yeah,
when we're interviewing someone or talking with someone, particularly in those early discussions, we want to see, is this someone who embraces those values? Of course, if you ask someone, hey, do you think this is important? Of course, they're going to say yes. So we try to
yeah,
look for examples of behavior where that value is clearly evident. So we look for that, and obviously part of that, one of those values is to be an entrepreneur, to be a solopreneur, we call it. Do you have the understanding, the mindset, and the ability to really understand and appreciate what it means to be an entrepreneur, to be a solo business? This is your business, yeah, in partnership with Zensho. And I guess the opposite of being a solopreneur would be being an employee. And it's not a judgment, it's nothing good or bad, but some people are not cut out for the entrepreneurial path. And that's some very highly productive and successful people better off as employees. I know many lawyers and investment bankers that are employees and they make millions of dollars, right? And there are some that decide to go off and start their own brokerage or their own solo law firm and maybe make a lot less money. Maybe they make more money. Who knows? But it's just a different type of mindset, a different approach. Case in point, we had someone join us a few years ago. Obviously, I won't mention names, but he was a wonderful guy. He was consistently billing, I don't know, I think it was 50 to 60 million yen a year at his previous firm. And then he came to Zensho and actually billed zero. And I just
mm,
couldn't understand. I was like, was it something about Zensho specifically? And clearly the answer was no. And so in my discussions with him, throughout the journey, what we realized, and he realized actually, he was self-aware enough to realize that he needed to be in a boiler room with a manager going, come on, everyone on the phones, the first 1 to 10 calls. And that's good. Some people thrive in that. I actually thrived in that early on in my career, right? And he knew that's what he needed. The freedom of being an entrepreneur, the freedom of being at Zensho, the earning potential of being at Zensho is wonderful, and people are attracted to that. But then some people think, hold on, this is down to me now. I'm accountable for my own results. The buck stops with me. I have to really invest in
mm,
myself. And for some people, they're not ready for that, or they don't want that. They just want to be able to go to their job, get paid adequately, but also have that sense of, someone pressuring them and that external influence pushing them forward. So not as self-motivated, not as self-driven. But the good news was he understood this. And so during his time with us, he was off overseas building a cafe and doing different things. So by his own admission, he just didn't work, right? And then he realized he got to the point where he goes, "Oh, I've got to leave. I need to make some money." So there's those people. So we look for people who are ready or who understand the realities of what it means to generate your own business and to effectively run that and to set up your own routine. How are you gonna do this? And yes, we have a fantastic support network, and we're always there to support and rally around each person, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's got to come from you. You got to have a strong enough why, a strong enough
mm,
purpose that's driving you. So there's that. That's one of the core values we have, and the other one is to maintain an abundance mindset and to know what's possible, to believe there's enough to go around, and also to know your own potential. What's possible for you. To seek validation in that. Like I always say to my recruiters, is there someone in your area, in your specific niche in Japan, billing this much revenue right now? And the answer is probably yes. And if that's possible and you're here, so Is that something? Is that more of a lack of, is it more a limiting belief that you have, or is that you feel that the practice area is a mismatch, or is it something to do with your activity? So at least we can try and break it down and see where the roadblocks are. So I mean, the opposite of an abundance mindset, of course, would be a scarcity mindset, a scarcity
Mm.
mentality, and we see that far too often in recruitment, where it's very kind of almost like the yakuza. It's very this
Hmm.
is mine, stay out, and this type of thing. So we want people who are going to be receptive to discussions with colleagues about sharing this or working this role at your clients, and helping each other out, that type of thing. So the abundance. And the third core value we have is, we say it's we hunt as a tribe. And that kind of brings the first two values together. But it's very much about understanding that we're a community, and we're leveraging, each one of us is really a reflection of everyone else, and the power in that, but also the responsibility in that, and how we work together. So we're looking for people who can really do that well. And we've had recruiters come to us who are good recruiters, good billers, and entrepreneurial, but they maybe lack those other two kind of values, at least from our perspective. And so it's not really going to work. We like to say at Zensho, you're in business for yourself, but never alone. And
Mm.
I think what we represent, kind of getting into the model here, but what we represent is the best of being on your own, which is earning potential, freedom, autonomy, that type of thing. And the best of what it's like to be part of a traditional team, collaboration, community, infrastructure, training, mentorship, leverage, brand, existing business, all that type of thing. So I think what we do is we bring those two things together. And it's not for rookies, obviously. Rookies need a salary, and they need to, they need to go through all the hoops to really, understand this business. But it's for people, I think, who embrace those values I mentioned, and see the value in what I just explained there. They know how to do it. They know how to build relationships. Business comes through us, through the company, and that gets handed out to people. But it really, we need people who are 360 degree recruiters, people who know how to build business, people who have successfully done it before. But now we're allowing them to take off the shackles, to take off the chains, and do it the way they know best. And of course, take home a lot more for their efforts. I can
Mm.
tell you more about the compensation plan if you like, but yeah, how it
Yeah,
works.
definitely. Thanks for sharing those values, and it makes a lot of sense. So are there managers at all at Zensho, or you're just your
No,
own?
no, no. You're your own manager. So each person, as I mentioned, is an independent business owner, right?
Mm.
Yes, but they're operating. We're all operating under the Zen Show banner. We have client managers, people who are looking after clients, and then they might share work at those clients with colleagues, and vice versa, all of that type of thing. But each person is independent. We don't have this hierarchical structure. My job, as I mentioned earlier, I'm less of a boss. If you're working with me as an independent recruiter, I'm not your boss, legally or technically. My job is I'm the custodian of the brand, and I'm making sure that the infrastructure is there to support you and your practice. And we find ways to bring everyone together, and we have webinars and this and that. But that's really my role, to make sure that we help you formulate your business plan. And what are the challenges you think you might face on this plan? Maybe we need to change this or change that, or who should you connect with internally? So we want to rally around each of our partners to help them build a practice. And we had one guy a couple of years ago. He generated over 80 million yen revenue in the tech space, and he used to run his own one-man company before, and he shut that down to join us. And he said he not only did he make more revenue with us, but of course he kept a lot more of it, and the support, the shared deals, the split deals, and just, I'm going off on tangents here, but we had three people join us in London that had worked together for 10 years at two different firms. And when they actually approached me, when I spoke with them, I said, "Why don't you guys just, you've worked together for 10 years, the three of you. You're smart. You're some of the top legal recruiters in the London market. Why don't you just start your own thing?" And a story I've heard far too often now is just kind of lonely being on your own. It's
Mm.
lonely, but also there's nothing to leverage. There's no sense of community. There's nothing. It's just about you. And so I think what we offer people is, like I said earlier, the best of all that stuff on your own, but also that sense of something bigger, a sense of community, sharing ideas, sharing roles, sharing clients, but also just touching base, having colleagues, having camaraderie, a sense of community. That seems to be very important, particularly in this age of post-COVID age where we're dealing with a lot more wellness, well-being, anxiety, all these types of issues, which I'm sure as a coach to recruiters you hear about. And so that's something I feel like when COVID happened, my first concern for people, I did some video on LinkedIn about it. I was hearing horror stories from recruiters. Their bosses were like, "Oh, where's your next deal? Where's the money coming in?" And I get it, because those companies are paying out lots of money in salaries and they're not seeing the money come in. That's a stressful situation for both sides. The nice thing about Zensho is that, as I said, that chain that is not there between us. If I pay you a big salary, I'm going to ride you until I get a return on that, right? When you remove that impediment, now we're both free. Our relationship changes. Now we're there in this together. It's authentic. How can we help you get there? How do we both win in this relationship? Let's make this happen. And it's a different feeling and a different approach. But my first concern was sitting down with each person and saying, "Hey, how are you doing? How's your family? How's your spouse? She must be worried, right? The market the way it is right now, and just letting people know that, hey, you matter. And we're going to get through this if we band together. Someone's got some active clients. Let's see how we can get you over there and work on that. And then we'll get through this." But it was really about making sure that each person is respected, their voices are heard, are encouraged. And that's the most important thing. I mean, as corny as it sounds, the whole mission statement, the whole reason for Zensho's existence is to be a platform upon which our people can pursue and achieve the things important to them. We don't exist for our clients. We exist for our people. And it's the old Richard Branson thing. Treat your people right and they'll look after your customers. But we exist for our people. And there's nothing more fulfilling for me. My personal why is to empower people, is to liberate people, and to see people, fathers and mothers and husbands and wives at Zensho, who can now go to their kids' soccer game or whatever, or school event at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, or they're free. They're living now. They're not spending their life for 20 years from now. This is it, here and now. And to then reward them for their work and to see the impact of that on their family. I'll say one more story here as I'm getting going. I know I get all excited, but we had this one guy, Michael. He's now building a gin distillery, actually one of the biggest gin distilleries. Shout out to Michael. He was with us for 10 years and he still would be with us today, but just his gin distillery took his time. But that was his passion. He was making enough money with us so he could go off and do that. But I remember he was living in a country town in Chiba called Noda. He, for the 15 years or so he's in Japan, him and his wife, they really didn't make much money. They were teaching local little preschool kids English and things like that. So never had much money, but we were good friends with the martial arts, and he came on board and he was a natural. He was very, very good. And he shadowed me for a year. He was basically, everything you say, he's writing it down, listening, but then making it his own, making it authentic. But he did what was necessary, and he became a massive biller, right, in the legal area. And I still remember the first big deal he made. It was going to be there was like a commission check of say 15 million yen, something like that. I think it was 18 million. It was a massive deal, right? 60 million yen salary for the candidate. So I said, "Hey, let's go for dinner, right, with your wife, Akiko." And so because she had no idea, he hadn't told her yet. And we're sitting there at dinner, and I made one of those big checks, like a fake check, just that, like they hand out when you win a prize, right?
Yeah.
And I put on there, I think it was 18 million, or whatever the number was, 18 million. And we're sitting there, and he's sitting next to her. I said, "Oh, Akiko, did you hear Michael did an amazing deal?" She goes, "Yeah, I heard. Oh, I'm so proud of him." She's expecting he's probably going to bring home 1 million yen or something, 2 million yen. And I said, "Oh, well, look, here's this was deposited into your account today." Sorry, I get a bit emotional because it takes me back to that moment. Sorry. I still remember her looking at it, and she, how Japanese, when they count the numbers, they go from the zero. She's like, and at first she thought it was 1.8 million, and she's like, "Are they?" I have a photo, just how she embraced him, and it was just, and I thought, this is why Zensho exists. This is why I do what I do. No matter all the shit that can happen, all the good times, the bad times, it's about this. It's about them. And if we can get more people the right people, whether it's in Japan or elsewhere, and liberate more people and build that community, that's my goal. That was a very long answer, wasn't it, to whatever you asked? I can't even remember now. So, but
No,
yeah,
that's exactly
that's
what
what
we
we're
wanted
about.
to hear. That's yeah. Wow. That's powerful. I mean, that's how it should be, I guess, with these type of things. And it's beautiful what you've built. And I can hear your passion for it as well, clearly. Um, I'm curious, again, just diving practically into it. What does that commission scheme look like? As much as you can talk about it.
It's
And
it's nothing secret. So we work on a calendar year basis. So January 1 to December 31st. On the first, as a recruiter, all up it's a flat structure. Everyone's the same. Everyone's a partner. Everyone globally is on the same plan. On the first 10 million yen revenue that you generate in a year, you take home 70%, 70% commission. It's paid to you immediately. It's paid to you as soon as we get the money from the client. On the portion between 10 million and 20 million yen in revenue, you keep 80%. Anything over 20 million yen, you keep 90%. So, for example, the guy I mentioned earlier who made over 80 million yen in his bank account that year was 7 million plus 8 million plus 9,999,999 million, whatever that is,
hmm,
a lot. So one deal with us is worth, I don't know, 2 or 3 deals pretty much anywhere else, which means
wow.
1 year with us is worth potentially 2 or 3 years anywhere else. But and then and in return, of course, there's LinkedIn Recruiter and there's the database, all the stuff, all the apps and the platform and the tech and the coaching and all the rest of it that goes with that. There's a few other little things here and there, but that's basically the gist
So
of how it
you
works.
give them those resources as well, the LinkedIn
Yeah, so
Recruiter and
each
coach.
person, but each person pays a monthly fee to Zensho. So
Mm,
I got this idea from the real estate industry. I think they call it a desk fee, right? You pay a desk fee to the brokerage in return for all the stuff and the support and all the rest of it. So we have the same kind of thing. And the idea, of course, why this is important, why a monthly fee is important, and it's marginal. It's nothing that's going to hurt someone. But
it's like Jumon or
no less. Goman, 50,000
Gomon.
yen.
Okay.
And then the first 3 months you can defer that until your first deal, etc. Right? Uh,
Mm,
But the idea behind it is we need people who are invested in themselves and invested in their practice. And if there was nothing, anyone could join us. We invest in
yeah.
LinkedIn, which is expensive, as you know, and
Mm,
we rally around each person. We do all of that, and they could literally be sitting on the beach building a cafe, as I mentioned earlier, and that's
mm,
just money down the drain. So we want people who are going to hustle. We want people who your colleagues are going to look at each other and say, oh, this person is really trying to make a practice. We want people who are serious about building a practice. I should mention the monthly fee. If you generate 20 million yen in revenue, it's all reimbursed back to you. So effectively, if you're generating what I think most experienced recruiters would be hoping to generate at least an amount of 20 million yen in a year, well, then essentially there's no monthly fee because it's all reimbursed to you. So this is a way, the monthly fee also helps ensure that it contributes towards our fixed costs and the salaries of our leadership
yeah.
team and everything else. It doesn't cover them by any means, but it contributes to it. It allows us to confidently offer the 70, 80, 90% commission plan that we do.
I mean, those are crazy numbers.
Yeah,
I've yet
yeah,
to hear that from any company so
yeah.
far. I don't think that we will either.
Well, no, there are a couple of places that obviously we had some copycats, but other places that I think are getting the message and they're offering, commission only, 70%,
Mm,
maybe 80%. But the difference, what I've seen, not to disparage the competition, but the difference is you're very much on your own. And some of these things, these resources are not there. And in many cases, you're totally separate to the guy who sits next to you in the sense, you're your own brand, and that's okay as well. But then you have nothing to do with there's not that sense of community or leverage. You know, like right now we have if we bring in a big global client, we can approach that with 5 or 10 of our recruiters as a team, and each
mm.
person going to work on different areas because we all get to benefit from that regard, which you couldn't do if each 10 of you were a separate brand. Or had nothing to do with each other. And I think you won't see too many other models doing what we do because I think if you're a recruitment company, let's say you've got 3 owners, how can you survive if you're paying out 70, 80, 90% commission? What's left for the 3 owners, right? Not much. It's not a very attractive, from a business point of view, it's not so, I think, attractive for multiple owners, right? As a recruiter, I made more money as a legal recruiter. I did over 100 million 2, 3 times in Japan. I had some shitty years as well where it made less than 10 million yen. So it was definitely a roller coaster. So I'll be the first to say, if this model had existed back in 2000, 2002 or so, I would have jumped at it. I would have jumped at it,
Mm.
but it didn't. It didn't exist. And
Hmm.
so I made it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of this. I think it's extremely valuable for people. And if people are interested, what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so you can, if you go to my website, which is zensho.co, C-O, not .com, Zensho.co. Zensho, by the way, the Zen of Zensho is not Zen as in Zen practice. It means living completely. It's the Zenbu, Zen.
Mm.
It was a term coined by quite a famous Japanese martial artist, samurai, calligrapher, statesman called Yamaoka Teshu. But he said Zensho means to live completely in the present moment without hesitation or regret. And so back in 2003, when we're thinking what to call the business, Zensho was a name that stuck out for us. But anyway, back to your question. They can go to the website, look up my profile, or look me up on LinkedIn. Robin Doenicke, Doenicke. There's not many Doenickes out there, so it should be easy to find. And get in touch. And we recently brought aboard a guy called Tony Haley. He's fantastic. He joined us a few weeks ago. He's based in England, but his kind of purview is to help us grow internationally. So growing in Japan, but growing in other markets as well, which I hope to announce very soon. We're talking to some great people also in Japan. I'll be making some big announcements soon of some excellent people, big billers who are going to be joining us end of this year, early next year. So very excited about that, and it gives us an opportunity to bring this to more people. So yeah, if you're interested, even to have a chat, confidential chat, of course, even just to learn a bit more about what we're about, and maybe it's the right timing, maybe it's not, but I'm always happy to have a chat, build that connection, and then if things work out in the future, fantastic.
Awesome. Is there any other message that you want to share with the recruiters of Tokyo, or all
Just
got it all out?
I think recognize just how good we have it.
Mm.
One of the things I wake up every day, and really an attitude of gratitude, as they say. We have an opportunity to create massive wealth, but also to make a massive impact on the companies that we work with, on the lives of the people that we support. I think that's what really drives me in particular, is that connection that we get to play a very pivotal role in. So I think just believe in yourself, believe in what's possible, know what you want, believe you deserve it, and take massive action. Don't just sit back and wait for it to fall in your lap. Take action, and then change as necessary. Don't be so hard-headed that you only have to go one way. Adapt. You've got to be able to adapt, and then just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going, and just be yourself. Be authentic. As they say, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Just be authentic and be willing to learn. Look at something I did at East West when I joined, and I did this throughout my career. Like when I was in advertising, my first day, I looked who was the top of the board. And there was a lady called Rosemary Gota. She's out of the business now, but it was June, I think, in 2000, June of 2000, and she had 161 million yen revenue done for the year by June in finance. And I went up to her and I said, on my first day, I said, Rose, clearly, and number two was like 80 million yen, so you double. And I said, clearly, you're doing things differently. Success leaves clues, right? You're doing something different. And I want to know what that difference is. Because clearly, from the other 80 people here, you're doing something different. Because she was number one the year before. And I said, can I just be a fly in the wall? Can I just sit here and just, listen to how you answer the phone? Do you say, hello, Rose, or hello, Rosemary? What do you do? I don't want to be a clone of you, but I want to learn how you do it, how you approach a date. And she said, oh, piss off, I'm too busy. And so I went away and I came back the next day and she went, okay, just sit there and don't annoy me. And so I did. And I sat there for a couple of hours each day for about a week until my own team manager got angry and said, hey, you're on this team, get over here. But I took that, I looked at who the best players were and saw what they were doing differently. And I think I see too many recruiters today that are unwilling to do that. They have their way, they're set in their ways. You've got to see who's doing it the best in your area, in your sector, in your company. Learn from them. You might make it your own. Do it. You don't have to do it like them, but they're doing something differently. Learn from them and see what that is and see how that might apply to what you're doing. Because if you're not doing it, if you don't do anything differently, well, don't expect different results, as we know.
Is there an office at Zensho?
Yeah, so we had our own office in Akasaka for, I don't know, well, we had our own office since we started until last year when we realized that most people were working from home, coming in the
Mm.
office every now and then to, meet a
Mm-hmm.
colleague or something. So we moved into a serviced office called Servcore, Servcore? So
No.
it's like a WeWork.
Okay.
Yeah, but we have our own private office within there,
Mm-hmm.
and we have
Mm-hmm.
an open communal. People can sit there all
Mm-hmm.
day, any day at the workstations or the communal lounge area, and so it has the phone booth. So people actually, we weirdly or ironically, we see colleagues more. Colleagues meet each other more now because they like coming into that space. There's a lot more
Mm.
energy in that space, and they can go off and do their private things at the workstation. But by and large, I'd say most people still work from home.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that message as well of look at the people around you, absorb those skills, and also be yourself, make it your own. That's all beautiful. I've had a really good time to speak with you today. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
this won't be the last time that we talk
Anytime.
as well.
Yeah. Just as you know, just say something that gets my interest, that gets me going. Look, I love talking about the synergy between martial arts, spirituality, meditation, business, recruitment. For me, it's all one and the same. And you've got to when you understand who you are, when you're self-aware enough, then whatever role you play, and we all play many roles, it's going to be influenced by that. And
Mm.
I don't stop being a recruiter and then being this and then being that. It's all one thing, and that's what
And
makes
the
life
discipline, you kind of take that discipline with you,
100%.
among other things, I guess. But
Sure.
thank you for coming on and thank you
Thank
for
you very
sharing
much.
your wisdom here.
Yeah. Hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah,
All
lovely.
right.
Thanks, Levi. Appreciate it.
Thanks.